I used to believe that family was a safety net, a quiet promise that no matter how far you fell, someone would catch you before the ground did. But sometimes, the hands you trust the most are the ones that let go first. And sometimes, they're the ones who push. I learned that the hard way. The day I found out my parents had buried me beneath a mountain of debt. I never agreed to take a six-figure trap in my name without my consent. And worst of all, they expected me to thank them for it. That's where my story begins. Not with betrayal itself, but with the illusion that came before it. And I'll never point. Spring sunlight spilled across my desk as I sorted class schedules, price-checked textbooks, and scribbled rough study goals. Pharmacy school was supposed to be my doorway to a future I'd imagined for years. In our entire family, no one had even come close to the medical field. I was going somewhere new, somewhere bigger. My parents, Paul and Margaret, acted proud at first. They talked about telling the neighbors about how I'd be the first doctor in the family. I thought their beaming expressions were real. Maybe part of me needed them to be. Then Mom chimed in, that guilt-sweet tone she used when she wanted me quiet. We raised you, fed you, clothed you. This is how families support each other. A single sentence sent a crack through my chest. You should be grateful. Grateful for fraud, for burying me under debt. Before I even earned a paycheck, something broke inside me. Quietly, irreversibly. They didn't ask. They took. They didn't slip. They betrayed. Suddenly, childhood memories sifted back. Dad in the kitchen late at night. Stack of lottery tickets sprinkled like glitter across the table. Mom crying into a dish towel. Dad whispering, I just need one more win. Things will get better. I used to believe that promise. Now I realized it was a curse they carried and passed to me without permission. And I'll never point. I went to confront them in person. They sat side by side, like a united front. Dad didn't deny it. He just shrugged. We couldn't get loans anymore. Yours went through. You'll pay it off faster than we ever could. Mom nodded. That degree will take you places. You'll make more than both of us combined. This was the smart choice. Smart. For them. You had no right, I said. Dad's jaw tightened. You owe us. Family sacrifices. Now it's your turn. I stared at them. Two people I thought I knew. Two people who had always told me to work hard, study, be responsible. And here they were, turning me into their bailout plan. I walked out. I blocked their numbers. Emails. Everything. Blood may be blood, but trust is earned. And they had spent mine. Like loose change. And I'll never point. What came next was survival. One evening, Dad appeared in the living room with a neat stack of papers. Mom hovered behind him, arms folded like the decision was already made. Just sign these, Dad said. If something happens to us, you'll inherit the house. No lawyers, no hassle. The house wasn't much. Peeling white paint, a porch that groaned, a yard with more weeds than grass. But it was home. I didn't question it. Why would I? These were my parents. I signed. They smiled. I didn't know I had just opened the door to the mess that would follow. And I'll never point. Weeks later, I walked into the financial aid office to finish paperwork for the semester. The overhead lights buzzed like tired bees, and the smell of coffee and printer ink clung to everything. Miss Ellis glasses, calm voice. The kind of face that knows how to deliver bad news. Typed my name into the system and paused. You've already taken out a loan, she said. I blinked. You mean a grant? She shook her head. No, a loan, a large one. She turned her monitor toward me. A 6-figure disbursement. Sat under my name. Approved. Processed. A signature. crooked, uneven, rested at the bottom of the document. My signature. Except it wasn't. My stomach tightened. My breath shrank. That's not mine. The words felt small. She gave that look. The one people give you when they see a storm behind your eyes, but can't stop it. You'll need to speak with the servicer, she said gently. I walked outside in a daze. The sky felt too big, too bright for something so heavy. I called my parents. Dad answered. Yeah, he said, casual as a grocery list. We needed help. My pulse stuttered. You took out a loan in my name? Relax, he said. You'll be a pharmacist. You'll make great money. Paying it off will be nothing. I filed appeals with the school and the servicing company. Every answer circled back to the same dead end. The documents showed my signature. The funds had been dispersed. I was responsible. It didn't matter that the signature was forged. It didn't matter that the account wasn't mine. It didn't matter that I hadn't agreed. They told me, you can fight it in civil court, meaning pay a lawyer more money than you owe, to try to prove you shouldn't owe it. I was drowning. Before I'd even stepped into the water, I needed a reset, something that would force my life back into my hands. So, I enlisted. The decision shocked everyone who still knew me. One day, I was a pharmacy student. The next, I was standing in a recruiting office, knees steady, voice steady, heart anything but. Training broke me down first, physically, mentally, and then built me again, like steel hammered into shape. There, life was simple. Pain had rules. Struggle had purpose. People earned their place, and no one took more than they gave. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't being used. In my barracks locker, I taped an index card at eye level. It read, "This will not define me." Every morning, I repeated it. Every night, I promised it again. The people I met became brothers. Marcus joked through hardship, like laughter could bend reality. Rivera always had extra chargers, spare socks, bandages he never asked repayment for. And Ethan, older than most of us, quiet, steady in a way that made you want to stand straighter. One night, after a grueling drill, we sat outside under a bruised purple sky. I was staring at the dirt, lost somewhere in thought. "You look like you're carrying something heavier than a rucksack," Ethan said. I didn't want to tell him. My story felt messy, humiliating, but the words came anyway, like pressure finally releasing. My parents put me in six-figure debt without asking. He didn't react with shock. He just listened, really listened. When I finished, he said slowly, "You can drown in what they did, or you can stand on it." "How do you stand on a hole?" I asked. "You fill it," he said, "brick by brick. Small, boring steps, but they build your future. No lecture, no pity, just truth." And I held on to it. In next day to down this, rememberage time in summon, on anyway to 17s, 4 years passed. I completed active service. I earned discipline in my bones and confidence in my chest. Then I returned to school. Older, sharper, more in control of my future than I'd ever been. Classes weren't easier. I just didn't run from the work anymore. Late night studying, early morning rotations, meal prepping on Sundays, every step felt like a brick under my feet. But the debt, it waited for me. Every monthly statement was a reminder of betrayal. I remembered long ago moments. Mom pressing coins into a jar I'd saved, telling me she'd keep it safe. Dad saying one win would fix everything. Me believing them. Now, I carried their choices, like a shadow. Some nights, alone in the library, I wondered if I should reach out, demand answers, demand accountability. But then I'd picture Dad shrugging, Mom guilt-tripping, and that thought dissolved. They didn't deserve my voice or my time. In Clugrid, to descend, honest with the connaissance, I graduated. Doctor of Pharmacy, commissioned in the reserves. My classmates celebrated with shouts, crying families, future plans exploding like fireworks. My celebration was quieter. Just me, holding my diploma, hands trembling. Not because I did it, despite them, but because I did it. Without them, I rented a modest apartment. Thin walls, funny smells, but it was mine. Then came the payments. Every month, I sent hundreds, sometimes thousands, into a void my parents created. No thank you. No apology. No shame from them. Just silence. I'd sit at my tiny kitchen table, payment confirmation on my laptop, heartbeat slow and steady. I hated every dollar, but every dollar was reclaiming my life, brick by brick. In Clugrid, to descend, honest with the connaissance. Slowly, the number shrank. 5 figures. 4. My spine straightened with each reduced digit. Then, one morning, the balance was 0. I stared at the screen, waiting for relief to roar through me. But instead, peace settled soft and deep, like a quiet exhale I'd been holding for years. No fireworks, just calm. I closed my eyes and let myself feel it. The debt was gone. I had carried their weight and survived. I didn't message them, didn't call. I owed them nothing, especially my triumph. In Clugrid, to descend, honest with the connaissance. With my savings, I bought a small house. The floors creaked like bones, remembering old stories, and sunlight crawled across the walls. In a way that made the air feel warmer, I painted the front door, a color called Deep Harbor. It felt steady, safe. The first night there, I sat on the bare floor with cheap takeout and listened to the newness around me. It wasn't the house I grew up in, but it was the first place that felt like mine. I thought that was the end. But stories don't end just because you want them to. Families who take rarely stop taking just because you leave. In Clugrid, to descend, honest with the connaissance. One evening, an email appeared. Sender, Heather, my younger sister. Subject, they want to talk. Her message was short. Mom and Dad say they're sorry. They want to make things right. Will you talk to them? A sharp stillness spread through my chest. Sorry? Now? Where was this remorse? When I begged for answers? When I suffered? When I paid for their sins? I stared at the screen. For a long time, they didn't want forgiveness. They wanted access to my time, my money, my life. Ethan's words came back. You're not obligated to bleed twice. For the same people. He'd been right then. He was right now. But despite everything, a part of me wanted closure, even if it stung. So I agreed to meet them. Not at their house, not alone. Neutral ground, a diner off the highway. The resolvence process for my never. The diner sat between a gas station and a tired motel, its flickering neon sign buzzing against the dusk. Inside, the air smelled like burned coffee and old syrup. The kind of place where conversations stained the walls. Heather was already there, hands wrapped tight around a mug, eyes darting toward the entrance every few seconds. When she saw me, her shoulders dropped in relief. I'm glad you came, she whispered. I nodded. I wasn't here for them. I was here to make sure the door stayed closed. The right way. Mom and Dad arrived minutes later, walking in side by side, just like the day I confronted them years ago. Except now, They wore softer expressions. Practiced, careful. Mom crossed the room with open arms, but I didn't move. Her hands froze mid-air before she lowered them. Dad cleared his throat, attempting a fatherly smile. "Son, you look good. Let's sit," I said. I didn't return the smile. They took their seats. Mom directly across from me, Dad beside her, Heather between us all. Like a human buffer. For a moment, no one spoke. The sound of plates clattering around us filled the silence. Finally, Mom folded her hands. "We're sorry," she said. Her voice trembled, but her eyes didn't. "We made mistakes," Dad added. His tone was too smooth, too rehearsed. I waited. "For years," Mom continued, "we've felt awful. We want to fix things. We want our family back." There it was. The pitch. I asked, "Why now?" They exchanged a look. The kind that says, "Stick to the script." Dad answered, "Well, things have been hard lately." Heather stiffened. "What kind of hard?" I asked. Mom pressed her lips together. "We're behind on a few bills. Taxes. The mortgage." There it was. The truth, thinly painted over with regret. Dad leaned forward. "We just need a little help getting through. Then we can all move on." My jaw tightened. "So that's why you're here," I said. "Not to apologize. Not to take responsibility. Just to ask for money." Mom flinched. "That's not fair." "It's the truth." She tried again. "We're your parents. We've done so much. You exploited me," I said quietly. "You stole my future. And now that I've rebuilt it, you want a piece of that too." Dad's mask slipped. "What were we supposed to do?" His voice sharpened. "We were drowning. So you tied a rock to my ankle and expected me to swim for both of us?" Silence. Heather looked down, eyes shining with shame that wasn't hers to hold. Mom tried one last angle. "We thought you'd understand. Family helps family. Family doesn't betray family," I said. Dad slammed a hand on the table, silverware jumping. "This attitude. This is why nothing works. You think you're better than us, just because you got a degree." I breathed slowly. "I don't think I'm better. I think I'm done." Dad scoffed. "So that's it? You're cutting us off forever?" "Yes." He blinked, as if the concept had never existed in his world. Mom's face twisted. "You'll regret this," she whispered. Not a threat, not a plea, a curse. I stood. I already did. For years. Heather rose too, but her hands shook. She looked at them, the people she still called parents, because she didn't know how not to. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "To you, not them." Mom's face crumpled. "You're choosing him over us?" Heather closed her eyes. "No, I'm choosing myself." We left. Together. Outside, the parking lot buzzed under weak yellow streetlights. Heather hugged herself. "I didn't want it to go like that." "Neither did I said. "But it was always going to." She nodded, wiping her eyes. That night, she crashed on my couch, having no strength to return to the house we once called home. The result of its process from self. Over the next few months, the email started. At first, from my parents, long paragraphs dripping with guilt and accusation. Then from strangers, neighbors, extended family, each message following the same script. "They're your parents. You only get one family. Just help them." I ignored every one. Then came a letter from an unfamiliar law office, stating my parents sought formal financial support from their child. They were trying to legalize their entitlement. I forwarded it to my attorney. He wrote a beautiful reply. Calm, precise, all blade, and no blood. My attorney included documented fraud history, evidence of identity misuse, copies of the forged loan documents, and a formal notice that any harassment or further attempts would be met with legal action. After that, silence. For a while, the Kasten is the best. Meanwhile, I focused on life, work, routine, stillness. Heather visited often, bringing coffee, stories from her job, slowly untangling herself from the roots that had been strangling her. But healing isn't a straight line. One afternoon, I came home to find her, sitting on my porch, knees pulled up, hands shaking. "What happened?" I asked. "They did it to me," she whispered. My stomach turned to stone. She handed me a letter, credit statements, for an account she'd never opened. In her name? Maxed out. History? Repeating. She had tried, confronting them. They'd told her it was temporary, that they needed her help, that she should be grateful. The same script, the same poison. Heather broke down. I thought maybe they changed. I sat beside her. They don't change. They just find new ways to take. She cried into my shoulder, like she had when she was small, and thunderstorms terrified her. I didn't promise it would be okay. I only promised she wouldn't face it alone. The Kasten is the dorm. We disputed the charges immediately, filed reports, froze her credit. I covered her legal fees, not because I was obligated, but because family, real family, protects. As we sat at my table, reviewing paperwork, I saw something break inside her, the last thread, tying her to the fantasy that our parents were ever going to be better. She closed her eyes. "I'm done," she said, and I believed her. After Heather cut contact, our parents tried reaching out again. Emails, blocked. Phone calls, blocked. Letters, shredded. Then one evening, a message slipped through from an unknown number. Just 3 words. "You'll regret this." No names, no details. But I knew exactly who sent it. I reread it once, then deleted it. I refused to give their bitterness a room in my head. Instead, I focused on protecting what mattered. Heather and I met with a lawyer, the same one who'd helped me untangle my past. He walked her through fraud paperwork, identity alerts, the steps I'd once taken alone. She handled everything with a quiet strength. But I could see the grief of losing parents while they were still alive. There is a word for those who lose spouses, widows. A word for those who lose parents to death. Orphans. But there is no name for children whose parents are alive, but choose to harm them. Maybe it's because the wound has no shape. It keeps changing. The Kasten is the best. A few weeks later, I received a thick envelope from the loan servicer I'd once battled. Inside were final audit records I had requested long ago. There it was, line by line, the exact trail of where the fraudulent funds had gone. Transfers to accounts in my parents' names, payments to gambling sites, cash withdrawals, all of it documented. I stared at the pages, a strange mix of vindication and grief settling in my chest. This wasn't just betrayal. It was deliberate. They hadn't made a desperate choice. They had made a calculated one, and they made it against their own child. My lawyer asked if I wanted to pursue charges retroactively. I thought about it, about justice, about punishment, about the clean satisfaction of seeing consequences land. But revenge has many forms. Some are loud, some are quiet. I didn't want ears in courtrooms with people who had already taken enough. I wanted distance, peace, truth. So we documented everything, officially, cleanly, and closed the case, with a record strong enough to protect us from their future mistakes. That, in itself, was justice. The Kasten is the best. Life moved forward in slow, gentle steps. Heather found a small apartment near her work. She painted the walls soft green and filled it with plants that reached for the sun. Sometimes I'd find her asleep on my couch again, curled under a blanket, the storm inside her still settling. We didn't talk about our parents often, only when necessary. Some grief doesn't need conversation to be understood. It just needs presence. The Kasten is the best. One quiet afternoon, I went digging through old boxes in my basement, not searching for anything, just curious what remnants of my old life still lingered. Inside a worn shoebox, I found a photocopy of the forged signature that had damaged so much. For a long minute, I just stared. It looked like mine. It wasn't. That piece of paper had dictated years of my life. I carried it outside, to the backyard, sunlight warm on my shoulders. In the stone fire pit, I laid the page down, like something holy and wrong. I lit a match. The flame curled the edge of the paper, ink fading to smoke. It burned quietly. No drama, no spectacle, until the page collapsed into ash. A soft gust carried it away. It felt like exhaling after years of holding my breath. That piece of paper had defined nothing I had. The Kasten is the best. Later, I sent my parents one final message, 2 short lines. I wish you well. From a distance. Do not contact me again. No anger. No explanation. No apologies. I blocked the email. I blocked their numbers. I blocked every doorway back into my life. Some endings don't need to be loud to be complete. Number Kaid, Min for Y. Time passed quietly. I built routines. Morning coffee, evening walks, weekends helping Heather assemble furniture or repot plants. I learned how silence could be gentle, how peace could fill a space once occupied by chaos. Sometimes I'd wake, expecting the weight of old fear, a bill, a demand, a crisis. But none came. Instead, sunlight spilled through my windows onto hardwood floors that creaked like old houses do. My house, my life, felt like mine, completely. Number Kaid, Min for Y. One evening, Ethan came over for dinner. We sat in the living room, soft music in the background, no urgency in the air. You look lighter, he said. I think I am. What changed? I thought for a moment. I stopped hoping they'd be different and started believing I deserved better. He nodded, like he'd been waiting for me to say it. That's the brick, he said, the one everything else sits on. We talked about small things, work frustrations, his new dog, shows worth watching. Eventually, he asked, would you do anything differently? I considered it. No, not really. It broke me, but it taught me how to rebuild. He smiled. That's how you win. You know, not by hurting them, but by not letting them hurt you anymore. I realized then, Revenge isn't always a strike. Sometimes it's a boundary. Sometimes it's a life they can't touch. Number Kaid, Min for why. People often ask if I forgave them. The truth? Forgiveness isn't a door you're required to walk through. Sometimes closure is simply choosing to walk away. I learned that blood is just a color. Family is the people who stand beside you in your darkest nights, even when they have nothing to gain. People like Heather, people like Ethan, people who show up because they choose to, not because they're obligated. Those are the ones worth calling family. Number Kaid, Min for why. So if you stand where I once stood, at the crossroads between loyalty and survival, choose yourself. Even if your voice shakes, even if your heart breaks, even if the world tells you otherwise. Because the people who ask you to destroy yourself, to save them, were never your shelter. They were the storm. And you deserve the calm after. Always. Just because someone gave you life doesn't mean they have the right to control it. My parents stole my future once. I built a new one, brick by brick, and this time, it's mine.